G'day, friends and fans. Now I'll be streaming, yeah? It just took me a little time, I know. But it is what it is. Sometimes these things don't go to plan. I actually got hit with a OBS update. And then I got hit with a driver update. I'm waiting for the third shoe to drop, things come in threes. But, g'day friends and fans, it's really been a weird day for news. I mean, for a while, I know the Australian news dominated the world, and of course, everybody's favourite panhandler got upset that he wasn't the centre of attention. So he makes a stupid rant promising peace to Ukraine and that he's willing to compromise by giving up NATO ambitions. Well, guess what? That was actually one of the first talking points that Putin put on the list. You want the peace with me? You want, number one, no NATO. No NATO. No foreign troops. No missiles. Cut your army. But then, you also have to stop persecuting Russians, stop erasing Russian history from Ukrainian history books, make Russia an official language, allow ethnic Russians to have ethnic Russian schools. There's a whole list of things that are quite reasonable. Now, apparently some of these were actually going to be agreed upon to Zelensky. The problem is the future of the Donbass, Crimea, and now the other captured territories. This is the point I'm trying to make here. Nothing Zelensky offered today is his idea, and it costs him nothing to agree to them. Okay? He's given nothing. He's just made another grandstand so that people go, look how compromising he can be. Putin is unreasonable. Putin, he's under the bed. He's under the bed, he's sneaky Putin. And of course, Finland immediately goes, oh wow, look at Zelensky, he's such a nice guy. Yeah, two fascists sticking together. Yeah, there goes my chance of going to Finland. Oh no, I don't get to have a holiday in Finland. Oh, fuck. What is wrong with the freaking world? You go into Kosovo, beat up the Serbs, and call yourselves heroes. And then you ignore Ukraine, a festering wound of corruption, drug running, human trafficking, sex slavery, sexual assault of minors, rampant corruption. And what do? We'll just give them some money, won't we? And say, join the EU and we'll make everything better. Why? Well, as Petraeus said before, well, we can put missiles 6 minutes to Moscow. That'll make Putin bow to us. And of course, all the Europeans go, yeah, let's make the Putin bow to us. As if he wasn't going to respond. My God, are people crazy? Unfortunately so. And as you can see, people don't like my channel. They don't like the truth. But I'm going to continue to speak the truth. Because, by God, you need the truth in your life. You must make decisions in your life based on truth. Not the unicorn fairy dust bullshit of the liberal establishment. In 6,000 years, liberalism has failed. 6,000 years of failure. Of empire building to only watch said empires crumble time and time again. Because it's liberalism is, and multiculturalism is, and always will be, about building empires, about subjugating people under the single ideology of worship the biggest bully in the room. Multiculturalism always seeks to subvert your religion, your national identity, undermines your language, and of course removes your cultural identity and strips you of... This is what the Soviets did, and Putin was trying to undo this peacefully. He was negotiating with Ukraine, but the Europe has to stick their nose in because the Europe is failing. Multiculturalism always ends in the liberal establishment failing. Now my computer just beeped it. Something seems to be wrong. I know you can't hear it because I got the headphones on. Microphone, 100% volume. It's showing. My recording failed. Great. Just great. Oh well. Neither here nor there. I thought I had enough room on my hard drive. Silly me. I forgot to move yesterday's footage. That's on me. Sorry, folks. But my computer is glitching, and I don't know why. I think it's not a virus. I've already been through that. I honestly, my neighbor thinks somehow someone hacked him. I mean, I don't know what it is. But, yeah, we've had a spate of hackings targeting, because we're on a building, on a block. It's got all the same, it's in a block of IPs. We're all attached to what's called a national broadcast network. I honestly don't know what's going on. I mean, I hear so many things all the time. Half goes over my head. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that targeted hacking was someone's trying to disrupt. It's happened before. I've had videos go down. I've had my channel hacked. People don't... See, they can't argue with you. They cannot debate. Europe can't even defend its ideology, okay? They when it comes down to Europe, they keep talking about the same things. We've got to help the refugee. It's our Christian duty. None of them are Christians, by the way. They're all socialists. But Christ was a socialist. Really? You mean the guy who went into the banks and flipped tables? Maybe. Yeah, maybe at that. But isn't he also the guy who said, sell your cloak, buy your sword? Isn't he also the bloke who didn't run around, not once did he run around saying, "Oi, you, give up everything you got to this guy"? He did not run around doing that, okay? He taught a few life lessons, which he left it up to the individual to decide when and where to apply them. So he wasn't a socialist, he was a libertarian. Bit of a... He also said refugees are temporary. Well, allegedly. He also said, don't go around crowing about your charity. The charity begins at home. And there are many things that people leave out about judging. Well, it actually says you can if you're prepared to be judged. So, when Zelensky runs around screaming about the Putin, well, should not Zelensky be judged by the same standards? No, because Zelensky's a Jew. He's above reproach. See, this is why people get upset. When you put groups on a pedestal. This is why... But that's what liberals do, okay? They put everybody else but one group on a pedestal so they can... What they do is they pander to the angriest people in the room. The feminists, the gays, the Jews, the Muslims, the blacks, and say, beat up the European for us so that we don't have blood on our hands. But then, next will be, oh, China's failing. Or Russia. Let's beat up now on Russia. Let's now beat up on China. Next will be Japan. Next will be Korea. Men versus women. You name it. Liberalism always puts all but one group on a pedestal and then gets all their grievances and pours their hatred onto one. It is the constant hatred that festered under the Soviet Union that led eventually to the collapse of the Soviet Union, and because it was formed on festering hatred. Okay? And now that festering hatred is being turned into nationalism. Sounds like 1933. All over again. Exactly. But that is what liberals do time and time again. They have no morality. They only have positions. Now, as you can see, I got the map of Ukraine up. Ukraine has been hit in multiple locations. Now, this seems to be, I know, this is a big logistics hub. Now, Ukraine gets hit at airports, at, are they called barge terminals? I don't know. These islands where ships come, drop off stuff, right? Now, I don't know why they're on islands in the river. I think they're just, they are attached to land. That's what I thought. But I also thought, and I thought I saw somewhere that these islands actually have, they are connected. They're artificial, by the way. They were built during the Soviet Union. They were built on top of existing islands, though. But they also widen rivers. They actually... You'd be surprised how much landscaping they did to Ukraine. They altered the course of rivers with dams and digging. Now, allegedly, this stretch, right, cost the lives of over 1 million people. And it's not the only one. There was winding the Volga. There was tunnels in Sevastopol for Soviet subs. But the thing is, when you look at the history of Ukraine, you cannot separate the history of Ukraine and Russia. Now, I'm not saying Ukraine owes its existence entirely to Russia. Pretty much, Ukraine is the land between. Its entire history is about between nations that hated each other. And that hatred has formed Ukraine. The only way to end this is neutrality. It's logic, however. And Zelensky is above logic. He's an entertainer. Therefore, he's an emotional animal. And emotional animals go for emotional outcomes. That is the outcome that gives them the most pleasure. And results in the most leisure. And, of course, the most wealth. Because today's entertainer is built on the principles of Robespierre. That is greed, pandering, and posturing. As you can see the difference between Zelensky before and after his election, when he goes from 98-pound weakling to weakling with a bodysuit on. And all weak men take out their anger and frustrations on others. Now, you're going to say, but the Putin! Well, the Putin is not our ally. He could have been. Putin is not a friend. He wanted to be. Putin had trade. Ukraine has 1.4 trillion. Russia has 22.4 trillion in trade. Makes sense to trade with the Russia. And would slow But that would slow the economy of China. And all the dyed blue Democrats are invested in China and making money off China winning and draining the wealth of the United States, Russia, India, and Brazil. Now, Brazil is pushing against China. Russia is pushing now against China. The whole world is pushing back against China. They're sick of China. But see, Ukraine is like China. Ukraine makes promises that they don't keep. And if you don't have to take my word for it. Zelensky ran on that exact same principle. But see, this is the thing. Most of these people who believe that Zelensky is a hero is only reading Zelensky's own PR. This is the problem. They cope and seethe. They cannot process. They are party loyalists, so they will always believe the party is right. They will always believe that they are in the right and that they have to put the boot on your neck because my safety, the rapists will get me, the Nazis are under the bed. No, the Putin is under the bed, said Zelensky. There are no Nazis in Ukraine, says Zelensky. It's the Putin who's under the bed. And of course, as we go around the map, there is always a few of the usual areas keep getting hit. And did Ukrainians' offensive in Kupiansk amount to anything? No, the Russians have resumed their normal attacks. Zelensky's advances came to a screaming halt on the river. Like I said, the Russians held the line, as I knew, and they still hold the junction. The Ukrainians have actually now lost territory as the Russians are moving in to reinforce their position, though there is no actual conflict ever marked on the map. I think, again, Russia ceded territory in order to lure in the Ukrainians, have them dig in, and now there's 10,000 less men for Lyman and other areas. Once again, the Putin has used Kupiansk to draw in the Ukrainians to weaken Ukraine's position in the defense of Ukraine. It is a brilliant strategy move. Whether you like it or not, Zelensky got played yet again for a sucker. Because he's about as military-minded as a circus clown. Which he is. Right, so we have small, but gains nonetheless. We have Russia in a holding position, holding about 2/3 of Seversk. The Ukrainian army on the outskirts of Zelensky. Now, we have probably just a rearranging of the map, but it does look like Russia's in southern Zelensky and had made small gains there. Straightening of the front line, but nothing new at Chavis Yar. A few minor blips on the map, but really nothing in Konsk. I think the map's just slightly off-center today because everything is just slightly different. But the overall shape of the map is still the same. It's like the outline of the map is just slightly moved. Alright, so yeah, today looks like Russia's not made significant gains. And in the street battles of Ronetsk, they've made a few probing attacks into the north. Now, I don't know why the map is showing undeveloped areas. These are laid out streets that appear to be empty in northern Ronetsk. I think it's because they were devastated and there's no housing there. You see if now and again that there are a few blanked areas on the Ukraine map. Now, see, look at this. They've got all these streets, and there's only a few places with houses marked on them. There's a few places without. These are industrial sites. They don't have names. They have numbers. But Mariod, the Russians are only on the southern end. They're actually on the outskirts elsewhere. They haven't pushed. They've only done probing attacks. Now, Ravine, they've fought and attacked Ukrainians trying to resupply. There's been Ukrainians trying to come down the rail line to infiltrate Pavlovsk. They don't make it. It's a suicide mission, but that is exactly why this little bit here is open, so that the Ukrainians think they have a chance, when in reality it's a trap. But Zelensky, no, your heroes do not die. No, they get annihilated. They get annihilated by egotistical men who... Here's the irony. You know, if you took every one of these posers on... Just take one social media. Let's take all the posers on X who post on Zelensky's timeline. How many of them are going to fight in Ukraine? How many of them are going to, A, demand war with Russia, and B, turn against it as soon as that war becomes unpopular and bogged down? And then C, protest once German conscription comes for the little virtue singlers. They will say, no, we're college graduates. We're net contributors to society. Shut up and get in the truck, you unemployed layabout. But that is exactly it, right? Liberals do not have morals or virtue. They have positions, and that's all they have. But see, the position is the only place that's seen any significant gains or any real gains is, it's still insignificant. And this was yesterday, but the Russians have moved up reinforcements. So, they're trying to cut the road. Who controls the roads, controls the reinforcements. But there's still other roads. But still, the less roads Zelensky has to use, the easier it is for Russian drones to hunt and kill supply trucks. And this is why if you've ever read casualty reports, you see in Ukrainian casualty reports, private vehicle, private vehicle, private vehicle, private vehicle. And you see them on the road. The only vehicles allowed on the road, the only vehicles that get more than 1 litre of fuel per day is a ammunition courier. A lot of Ukrainians, they only get enough fuel to get them to and from work. A lot of them even don't have that much fuel. They have to carpool to pool the amount of fuel. That's why so many Ukrainians own cars. They buy cheap... This war has been planned for a long time. They moved a lot of second-hand Toyotas into Ukraine, especially pickup trucks, and they started supplying Taliban-style, Soviet-era 12.7mm out of Afghanistan. That's why they're getting Chinese ammunition, because Russia doesn't make those anymore. They do not make the Soviet-era. They make a new... it's a bigger shell. It's still 12.7, but it's a longer shell. It's the same way if you look at some of the Chinese AKs, they're slightly smaller. That's why it's so hard to get ammunition for them, because China's not exporting it to the West anymore, but they were exporting them to Ukraine for a while. Now apparently India is exporting ammunition more than and China's only exporting allegedly only exporting the components because China's decided that it's going to stockpile strategic ammunition instead of exporting it. Russia retaliated by shutting down some Chinese car factories. Now, some of the Chinese cars that were sent to Ukraine, these they look like golf carts. They're absolutely ridiculous. But you can tell by Putin's face he was not impressed. But, I don't know if it was Putin or someone else who said a couple of years ago that the BRICS alliance was born out of necessity. It was born out of all the countries that did not want to be part of the Western alliance. About the global hegemony. They wanted multipolarism. But the problem is they're not really multipolar. It's bipolarism. And I think Russia's realizing that you can have mutual defense pacts. I'm not against those. But I think China's got to realize I think Russia's got to realize that China is a snake in the grass. That it will never be your ally. It won't defend. Right? But also, China's headed for a massive breakup. It's an empire in its dying throes. Now, I know a lot of people don't like this, but to be honest, Ukraine, China, India, a lot of external factors, not just Europe, created this proxy war. Russia spent a decade trying to avoid war, tried to negotiate to save Crimea. The Ukraine was going to expel the Russians. People who lived there their entire lives, they were not external Russians, okay? Was not Russian occupation of Crimea. The problem is so many in the West know nothing about Crimea other than what the media tells them. And haven't you learnt by now that you can't trust Western media whatsoever? That you need multiple sources outside of Western media? But diplomatic efforts continued, despite the fact that Germany is preparing for war. And Trump has countered this by trying to get Poland, Italy, Hungary, and Estonia to talk them out of it. Now, again, this is a composite photo. You can see it, right? The background is fuzzy. Zelensky's in perfect clear. He's lit up. The background isn't. If he's lit up, why isn't he casting a shadow? And what is this shadow here from? That's where they cut something out, right? They cut something out to put him in. Someone else took that photo, right? Or it's a file photo. Unfortunately, yeah, I do believe it's a file photo. This is a file photo of the Soviet Visitor Center at Kupiansk in 2022. But somebody put this together and claimed Zelensky visited the front. Now, they repeat stories over and over again, right? 25 minutes ago, they repeated the same story over and over again. This is what they do. It's called, it's a brainwashing technique called rapid repetition. You might have done it at school with times tables, Say the times tables 3 times over, Say it, and then they get you to say it faster and faster. This is what they do. They repeat stories over and over again, trying to brainwash you. But Kaja Kallas, when pressed, finally admitted to foreign media that the EU would not let Ukraine join NATO because they'd have to provide concrete security guarantees. Wait a minute. Why does America have to provide those concrete security guarantees when you won't? When you abandon Ukraine, it was Europe, China, and forget who else, abandoned Ukraine, right? And as soon as there was the civil war in Ukraine, the coup, all the West took off, like they wouldn't help the very government they were asking to join EU, and then they came back in when they got themselves another pro-EU government back in, but they lost Crimea. They wanted the Crimea. That's all they wanted. Something has them. I think it's oil, okay? I think once upon a time, the left would be out there barking about the West trying to grab oil. No, but the thing is, it's about denying Russia resources, because it's not that much oil. As of sea, right? But the people who used to own the Soviet-era oil company, they have this hate boner, and they're sitting in London funding Keir Starmer and anybody else who will basically wipe Holodomor and other atrocities from history and try to restore the the Schiff Mercantile Bank and all the other Soviet-era companies back to their glorious prestige, back to putting their boot on the neck of Russians. See, this is what they won't tell you about the Russian Revolution. It wasn't about why they went after the Tsar. It's because he sold Russia out to foreign interests. And when he stepped down, they took out their anger and frustrations on him and the Liberal government that he appointed. Now, he had no choice. The Liberal government had forced his hand. They'd defeated him in a coup. Then came the Red October Revolution, and they altered their own history so that make out that the Soviets beat the Tsar, when in fact it was the army who had led a coup, but the same government the army put in was just as bad, There are always, look around you in the world today, there are always people willing to sell out. Democrats willing to sell out America to Africans, Indians, Chinese, anybody to make them richer, anybody to bring them cheap labour. Okay? You forget, they brought people from Europe over to be cheap farmers for the aristocrats who had fled England. Okay? They wanted a new British Empire under a new rulership. People don't want to know the truth. But there are enough founders with principles who stood against people like Franklin and Jefferson, who were empire builders. But unfortunately, with enough open land in the West, the eager beavers soon turned their eyes to grabbing power and land and gold and anything else they could get their hands on. And unfortunately, that is the up until the age of, I think, the 19th century, that is how most of the world worked. But people did start to realize in America that you can't keep doing that. You can't rinse and repeat expansionism. So while the decline of liberal democracy in America with the and the new order, the liberal establishment went against it. But what they've done is subvert the idea of a new world order, one that is built on mutual cooperation, and they replace it with a new form of subjugation, and that is the World Economic Forum. They hijacked the idea of trade, but first they lured in many countries, not just Russia, India, Finland, many countries to put their assets into Europe, and then they used that to control them. Remember, folks, they always every accusation by a liberal is a confession, right? When they talk about Russia controlling Europe with oil, that's what they want to do by seizing the sea as well, Crimea and Azov. to control Russia with oil. They're always telling us what their plans. Now, Prime Minister Orban has said that stealing Russian assets is a declaration of war. And, of course, it sparked a war of words where Ukraine, Finland and Poland attacked Hungary, calling Orban a tool of Russia because he doesn't want to go to war with Russia. Well, the foreign minister of Poland isn't going to be on the front lines, is he? And, of course, if Russia invaded Poland, he'd be evacuated as essential personnel. So, again, he is risking nothing. He, like most Ukrainians, are cheap suits. They bark about Russia, but every accusation they make is a confession. It's all about stealing other people's money because they cannot win. They're broke. They're losing. Poland was on the verge of greatness, and what did they do? They squandered it all on. They squandered every gain they made on Ukraine. Why? Because this con artist had convinced them that they would make $1 trillion rebuilding Ukraine. Of course, he has no intention of anybody outside Ukraine making money beyond him and his cronies. But he's always talking about a fair or it's not fair. Why does Ukraine have to withdraw but not Russia? It's not fair, says Ukraine. Well, Kiev has not changed their stance. The Kremlin's pointing out that Zelensky's offered them nothing. Nothing that Zelensky has told the Kremlin that there'll be no compromise, which is why everybody thought that yesterday there was a done deal. I was the only one who said, no, it's not. And ta-da! Dave was right again. Every one of these big channels with their 100,000, 200,000, 60,000, 20,000k viewers lie repeatedly, yet these viewers, they are hooked on the drug of comfortable lies. Eventually, they will run into the wall like a kid who suddenly wakes up one day, is sitting in front of the TV and going, why am I watching Mr. Beast? He's selling me junk food. And then realizes that Logan Paul was selling him junk food. That every big YouTuber is just selling junk food. It's why they're big YouTubers. It's almost like the only way to get ahead in this world anymore is to lie, is to be a scumbag with capped teeth and perfect hair and start off as a millionaire's son. Allegedly. Or look at Hassan Piker. He went to China, went, Mao is such a good person. They still kicked him out because they thought he was ridiculing the Chinese leader. Because he started dressing like him and talking like him. They thought, bugger off, you're a fucking Muslim, we hate you, get out. I don't think Assad's a Muslim, but you know what I mean, right? In China, there's few crimes that a foreigner can commit. One of them is ridiculing China. It's a unique crime to foreigners. If you ridicule China, even if they think you're ridiculing China or mocking them, they'll kick you out. Even if you think you're kissing their ass. The problem is they see it as weakness. Unless they're directing you to kiss their ass. But see, he wasn't paid to kiss their ass. He was doing it for free. For brownie points on the internet. So they kicked him out for mocking China. Fuck around and find out, I tell you. Now, apparently, you can have limited F-bombs on YouTube now. They're just some words, like the word that starts with C, has V in the middle and ends in D, has an O in there somewhere and an I, is verboten. Apparently, the H word is okay as long as you are labelled far right, because they expect you to say that word. Or if you're calling somebody a Nazi, it can't be Zelensky. Now, Zelensky's opposition has taken again to Russian media. That's because Western media won't give them the time of day, not in Spain, not in England, and not even in jolly old America. You're not going to see the leader of the opposition on Fox News. In fact, I heard they even once tried to get Zelensky on Fox News and he refused. Actually, he refused a lot of interviews. Apparently, he's got some sort of exclusive deal with Disney. Yeah, Euro Disney wants to build in Ukraine. Now, Disney is selling its IPs off, by the way. This is not yet confirmed that Bob Iger has destroyed Disney, and in some wicked deal with the Disney family led by Abigail, they want to rebuild Disney, get rid of its old IPs, and build a new Disneyland based on, I don't know, but they call it Valuetainment. Better call Valuetainment and say, hey, Patrick, Disneyland wants to steal your name. But you know what I mean, right? Disney wants to bring a new, inclusive value entertainment experience, which includes a second Euro Disney in Ukraine and this big Disney expanse in Dubai and Bahrain and Turkey. I want to bring Disney to every capital city or something. I don't know what bloody cope they're smoking, but yeah, it's apparently a deal where they're going to start selling Disney branded IP to countries to establish theme parks run by and owned by foreigners. And sort of like, wait a minute, I've heard this business strategy before. It's the Trump strategy, where you build a brand and then license it out. Because the licensing's what makes you the money. It's the same as Disney. It fails on its movies, but it makes its money on licensing. But Hasbro hasn't been able to pony up the money because toys aren't selling, because you can only sell so many copies of Grogu before people say, wait a minute, you're just selling us Luke Skywalker with a brown belt that you took off Han. But this is what they did to us as a kid. Like, this is nothing new. Star Wars did it. Disney did it. You know, selling us the same Mickey Mouse over and over again for 20 years. You know, it used to be first the big rubber Disney, Mickey Mouse. That Mickey Mouse lasted forever, okay? There's probably a landfill full of them that haven't decayed 1 inch, haven't lost any colour, right? Because they weren't decaying or breaking down like the furry Mickey Mouses, they stopped making them and stopped selling them and started replacing them with cheap garbage. And what's this got to do with Ukraine? Well, they want to move their toy factory, ta-da, to Ukraine, right? Rebuilding Ukraine with jobs. So there's now 3 different strategies. I mean, don't forget Disney's owned by BlackRock. Bob is just an office puppet. But here's the deal. Trump wants an end to the war. Disney wants to move in as possible, so they're pressuring Trump and Zelensky and Europe to end this war. But the Europeans want war, but nobody will fund them. So right now, Europe is trying to trick America into giving Ukraine security guarantees so they can pull a fast one like they did in Vietnam, deliberately lose the Battle of Daipu so they could kill off 100,000 vets so they don't have to repatriate them or pay them compensation or admit that they sent these young boys to die to create a war with the communists, right? France deliberately sent young men to their deaths. They knew the North Vietnamese had 2 million, an army of 2 million, armed and trained in Laos by the Russians. But instead of telling them this and bringing in reinforcements and the Americans and pulling back from Daepu, they sacrificed 100,000 men to spark outrage. But then they tried to sell it as buying time for South Vietnam to organise its defences. But no, the world is so full of gutless politicians who just take positions. They have no morals. We have to stop voting and I think eventually and hopefully, right, I know as bombastic and as entertaining as Trump is, everybody calls him a transitional president for a reason. Okay? He's the disruptor to the system. Right? He's the rebellion against the establishment. JD is the realignment that comes afterwards. If you can't see that, then you do not understand why so many like Trump and why so many say we can tolerate Trump because, right? They saw what happened 2016. They said, oh, Trump mishandled the big C, so they kicked him out, allegedly. Or Biden did a fast one, allegedly. Whatever you believe, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, millions of people got up and said, you know what? We were idiots for not voting. We didn't vote for when Obama was president the second time because we thought we don't, he's going to get back in. Then they realised, shit, we can't do that with Biden. So they shifted to Kamala and they said, nah, no deal. We're not having an unelected poobah. And boom, they put their foot down. And this is what happens, okay, when the majority vote. Trump, like it or not, represents the majority of Americans, represents the viewpoint of the majority of Americans, regardless of race, colour, creed, gender, or sexual orientation right now. He won in every demographic. He won in every in the majority of counties. He won in the electoral college. He won the overall majority vote. There is not a demographic that voted, except maybe millennials, overwhelmingly against Trump. And even then, that was close. So, the idea that the EU is somehow a moral arbitrator, that Europe must stand united, that is imperialism. That is Darth Vader standing on the bullpit saying, the Empire did no wrong. Those aliens, I tell you, they're hiding the Putin under the bed. But honestly, fuck Star Wars, fuck Disney, okay? Fuck all these companies who want to exploit war for profit. And fuck Ukraine. We're never going to fix Ukraine's problems. A festering wound needs sunlight. Okay? It needs the Ukrainians to stand in front of a mirror and realise everything that went wrong is because they kept voting for con artists. They kept voting for the guy who promised them utopia. And that has been the problem with Ukraine for well over 200 years. Whether it's a Tsar, a general, a knight captain of Kiev, it doesn't matter, right? They put in a liberal government, it turned into the fascists came in and then the communists came in. They tried in a liberal government again and they had 7 presidents in 7 years and collapsed. Let that sink in. Right? Zelensky's the longest running president I think they've had. They cannot reconcile their beliefs. I honestly think we're going to see most of the world's major religions collapse over the next couple of decades, because all of them are full of contradictions that go against the very nature of humanity. And I'm not talking about the dark side of humanity, but the desire for a homeland, the desire for to have your own unique language, your own unique culture. I think this is the problem. We're in Ukraine, and it really needs someone to actually come in and talk to Putin and say, why can't you let Ukraine have why can't you just let Ukraine be Ukraine, right? Just secure history, secure certain facts. Let's put everything to the sunlight instead of all these nitty-gritty behind-the-scenes talks. I am sick and tired of politicians and diplomats claiming they've made some major breakthrough, because in the last 75 years, what have we seen? Nothing but the failure of the liberal establishment. Now, whether or not you believe me is up to you, but I think the vast majority to tune in is what we have is representative right now of people who seek the truth. And that is a sad state of affairs, where the majority seem to only see the news or podcasting in general as entertainment. They want to only tune in to Alex Jones for the rampage. They only tune in to Pac-Man to be lied to. They tune into military analysts to get Zelensky's talking points for the day. Nobody, right? Millions of people should want the truth, but they don't. But remember, most of the time the truth is right there, but it's been hidden from everybody else. And the truth is that Ukraine might have a few good points on their side, but that does not give them the right to ethnically cleanse the Donbass. And yet nobody wants to address that issue. What happens to the people in the Donbass? There has to be an election. I don't care what the fucking Ukrainian constitution says. Okay? If Zelensky can stay in office without election, then there's no fucking constitution. Okay, it's poorly written, poorly designed, and it's just a crutch. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. You can support me. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.